Hello, everybody. We are live. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes till people arrive. And for everybody who's watching this back, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this guitar. This is one of my PRS SE277 baritone guitars, a 6-string baritone. And this model has DiMarzio pickups, but I put them in there myself with the help of a friend because I cannot do anything like solder. Hey guys, thanks for joining, by the way. Welcome. So yeah, this one has a DiMarzio Crunch Lab and a Liquefier in the neck. So that's a really nice pickup combo for baritone sounds. And this one was built in Korea. Most of my LTDs, Schecters, and PRS guitars were built in Korea. And the build and sound quality of this thing is just really, really nice. The wood is dense. It's a very resonant guitar. Very loud. I also really enjoy the fact that it has a maple top, which isn't always the case with those Korean guitars. It's a 27.7-inch scale neck, so great for low tunings. It's a very stable and solid guitar overall. I like it. I liked it so much that I got another one, which is basically the same model, but then the red version, the red with black. This one looks a little bit more classic, a little bit more classy. But the frets are really nice and leveled. And yeah, it's just a really good guitar. I really need to use this more, which I will in videos. So I also have the red one, which is basically the same. It was a bit of an older, newer model, actually. And that one has the stock pickups still, and those aren't bad. But the stock pickups that came in this one, I got this thing used. I traded it with somebody for my old PRS Torero guitar, my white Torero. And I was super impressed. So yeah, so I got the red one as well. With the stock pickups, they aren't bad, but I'm looking to put some Seymour Duncans in there probably to get a little bit more bite out of them, a little bit more clarity. And then I also have the semi-hollow P91 back there, which is also really cool, very unique guitar, very cool. And then also I have the black Mike Mushok model, the modded one. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for joining, by the way, everybody. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, just drop them here. We can talk about gear. We can talk about amplifiers, guitars, plugins, impulse responses, music. I'd love to talk about music as well. We can even talk about movies, games, whatever you guys want. But yeah, so this is a great guitar. I just wanted to show you this. It looks beautiful, doesn't it? The flamed maple top is a little bit basic, but it's pretty nice. Yeah, amazing guitars. I know that a lot of these models are now built in Indonesia, and I was a little bit doubtful about that. But I got my Phoenix a couple weeks back, the LTD Phoenix, which is over here. And that one was built in Indonesia, and it's a great guitar. It's a really good guitar, so it's probably great. Okay, keep the questions coming, guys, and I will keep babbling on for a little bit before I start answering your questions, because I have something else here, what I want to show you, just for fun, because you probably know that I'm a whammy pedal collector. I have a shelf of whammies over there. And this is one of my older Digitech whammy ones, the WH1s, like the vintage whammy pedal, the OG, the one that Tom Morello uses, the one that Dimebag Darrell used. Tons of artists, David Gilmour, Kirk Hammett on the song Devil's Dance, which is awesome, by the way. And a lot of artists, including Steve Vai also, and Joe Satriani, I think, a lot of artists swear by this older model. And look at how cool this thing looks. I mean, it's so tiny. If you compare this to one of the bigger whammies, those are quite a bit taller. And these look very cute. And I actually have 3 of them, which is a bit crazy. But I went hoarding there for a minute. I have the entire collection. I have the whammy ones, 3 then, because those are the most sought after. They both all 3 of them work very well. And then I also have the whammy 2, the black one, the plastic one with the foot switches. That one sounds fine as well. I only have 1, but I do have the box and everything. Then I have an XP100, the whammy wah, the one that Korn likes to use. And then we have the whammy 4, the chrome edition, and the normal one. Still looking for a box for that chrome version, by the way. Very nerdy of me. And then I have 2 whammy 5s, 2 DT whammies. Those are very cool as well. And of course, the drop and the whammy ricochet. And then also some other pedals like the freak out pedal. You guys need to get a freak out pedal. Those are awesome. Anyway, so yeah, just wanted to show you this little toy. Very cool, huh? Maybe in the future, when I have more time, I'll do a video on my whammy collection or something. Should be fun. But that's for the nerds, for the uber whammy nerds like me. Okay, so I see there are some questions up here. Let's get started. Hi, guys. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Let's have some fun and let's chat and laugh and talk about nerdy stuff that you want to talk about. All right? Let's see. Kyle Fox. I have the Soap Bar SE 277. Great guitar. Great guitar. Let me show you that one. Why not? Yeah, so this is the Soap Bar model that Kyle also has. So cool. I got this one at Anderton's when they had one of those crazy epic deal things, you know? Hi, guys. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Thank you, and keep the questions coming. Let's have some fun. Let's chat. Let's get loose. Let's talk about music. Let's talk about gear. Let's talk about movies. I got like 3 cupboards full of Blu-ray movies over here, so I'm a little bit of a movie nerd. I'd love to talk about movies, music, and gear, so let's have some fun. Anyway, so this is the Soap Bar model. For everybody who just tuned in, I was just showing the early viewers my my SE 277, the standard version with the 2 humbuckers. But Kyle Fox also has this model. And he's a lucky guy because these guitars are amazing. And I don't think they make them anymore. Similar specs to the solid body one, but this one is semi-hollow. Obviously, it has P90 style pickups in it, which sound very interesting. Like they have a huge mid bump. Really cool sound. Great for cleans on a Marshall. You know, an amplifier with a bright, chimey saturation. I love that. I love my clean tones with a little bit of edge. And yeah, amazing guitar overall. Just fun to look at. Anyway, all right, guys, let's do this. Evil Ash. I finally listened to you and picked up a mini rectifier. That thing rips. Oh man, you're a lucky guy, Evil Ash. Are you the guy from Evil Dead? Because I love Evil Dead. But yeah, man. Oh, the mini rectifier is so nice. Yeah, it gets some flack from the guys who, you know, big amps are the only amps that sound like real tube amps, and the little ones are for pussies. You know what I mean? Or EL84 suck. Blah blah blah. No. The mini rectifier sounds absolutely amazing. And for a lot of people, I guess you could say it sounds even better than the big one because the big one has a lot of low end and it's very scooped. And this tiny one has a little bit more mid-range going on. So it's great for in a mix as well. One tip, if you play it on a lower level and it sounds kind of bright and harsh, be sure to check out the 10 watt setting because when you change the wattage on that amplifier, the voicing of the actual amplifier changes. So when you put it to the 10 watt setting, the sound gets a bit darker and rounder, but that's great for lower levels, obviously. So check that one out. That's a tip for me. All right. So yeah, congrats with your new mini rectifier. I'm I'm kind of jealous, even though I have one over there. It's really reflective, but that's my beloved mini rectifier. It's such a cool little amp. You want me to get it? Should I get it and show you guys? Nah, you've seen it plenty of times on the channel, right? But yeah, congrats. Enjoy it. And yeah, modern mode, the red channel. You're going to have a lot of fun with that one. You're going to have a lot of fun. So yeah, be sure to jam some Rammstein. Rammstein is one of my favorite bands. And Richard from Rammstein, he's one of my all-time guitar heroes, you know. And his guitar tone is so massive. He plays on rectifiers as well. I think he mainly plays on the Rev F or the one of the first 500. I'm not sure how the pre-500 or whatever. He plays a very early rectifier. I know that live he now plays through Campers, but he's a big rectifier guy, and he's a big inspiration for guitar tones for me personally. So be sure to play one of their tunes on it. You'll have some fun. All right. Aaron Dehan. I'm working hard here to pronounce your names right, guys. And by the way, thank you all for tuning in. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna let loose, you know, and talk about gear, music, amplifiers, guitars, pedals, movies. I have a ton of movies here. Whatever you guys want to talk about. All right. Okay, so Aaron. Hey, what is your direct recording setup? Can you explain about gain staging? Well, Aaron, I released a video on how I record my guitars recently, which is on my channel from like this week. And that might be interesting to you because in that video, I explain how I record my guitars when I'm recording my tube amps and reamping my tube amps and stuff. Yeah, the gain staging thing is funny. I just plug into my XFX and the DI level is always perfect. And then when I route that signal through my amplifiers, I just make sure that that level stays intact. So just, you know, at, what's it called? When you've got the same gain going on, the exact gain that goes in also goes into the amplifier and then in my load box. And then you just got to make sure that the inputs of your sound card device are not clipping. That's the main thing. So if you have any more questions about that, feel free to ask them here, but also check out that video about my recording setup. By the way, guys, I've worked on some really fun videos these past weeks that I'm going to release to you soon. The first one will be released probably next week, and it's another amplifier comparison with 4 amps. You know, you remember the one that I made about the rocker verb, the rectifier, the 6505, and the JVM 410H. And this one is more about mid-level, mid-range amplifiers, like the Orange TH30 and the Laney Ironheart 60. Great amplifiers, by the way. The Hughes & Kettner Tubemeister Deluxe 40, amazing amp. And the awesome Blackstar HT Club 50 Mark II. So those are all kind of mid-tier or mid-priced amplifiers with a sort of middle-of-the-road wattage ranging from 30 watts to 60 watts. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to have clean, crunch, rock, and metal segments in there. If you have any questions about those amps, by the way, feel free to ask them and ask me anything about, you know, differences between amps and stuff like that, and recording and IRs and everything. So that one is going to come out next week. And then I finally made a comparison of my PRS MT15 that you can't really see, you know, the PRS MT15 that everybody knows, obviously, and the Angle Fireball 25, both smaller 6L6 amps. And that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So stay tuned for those videos. But then after, there's going to be a short sort of silence because in 2.5 weeks, I'm going to move to a new location. So this is actually the last or the final live stream in this room here. But yeah, I'm really growing out of this room. There's too much gear and it all is kind of stacked. So in the new studio, I'm going to have 4 shelf racks like this one over here, you know, the very industrial one, but then in black, 4 of those shelves. And I'm hoping that all my amplifiers will fit in those 4 shelves, but we'll see. So I'll be a little bit off the radar for, you know, 1 to 2 weeks, but I hope you guys understand. I'm sure you will, and I'm sure you'll have other things to do in your life. All right, next question, and thanks again for joining, guys. Thank you, and feel free to ask me anything. Let's have fun and talk about whatever, music, gear, movies, games, whatever. Let's have some fun. Carl Johan Tenstrom, what are your tips for creating realism with modelers like the Helix and XFX? Great question. You know, what's funny is when I started using tube amps again, because in the past I had used tube amps, and then for like 10 years or so, I didn't use any tube amps at all. I just went straight to modeling, and I used Line 6 stuff on stage with my old band, and then after that I got my first XFX2. And the funny thing is, well, of course I was learning, and everybody's still learning, and I'm still learning. But at that phase, I kept feeling a little bit insecure about my guitar tones, because I hadn't played real tube amps for quite a while, and you know, I tried to fix things with EQ and stuff, and then finally, of course, I arrived with at Ownhammer. I found out who Ownhammer was, and I tried some Ownhammer impulse responses, and then my tone started to get better and better. Sick plug. And then I got a tube amp again, and I started to getting used to playing through a tube amp again, and I started to you know, look at that whole thing a bit differently. And I never, because when you're using a tube amp, you never have to doubt about, does this sound organic? Does this sound real? Did I tweak it right to make it sound real, if I'm making sense? And, you know, that's really nice, because you don't want to worry, you just want to, you know, make music. But then after having gained more experience with tube amps again, it became much easier to dial in the modelers to sound like a tube amplifier, because you get used to how tube amps really sound and react to your playing. And then when I did those A/B comparisons, you know, and the recent blind test ones, okay, there are always differences between the modelers and the amps, but those differences can be very, very subtle. And maybe those differences aren't even going to matter at all. But in general, the Helix sounds, I think, usually the closest to my amps, which in the beginning was positively surprising. I mean, I already really enjoyed the Helix, and I liked it for what it was. But yeah, that really gave me another, you know, boost of positivity towards the Helix stuff, because it just always sounds pretty darn close to the real amps. In general, though, the Helix sounds a little bit more mix ready and slightly more gentle in the saturation. We're talking really small differences here. But yeah, that's a sort of sonic thing that one has. It sounds great, and it does this in a very pleasing way, in my opinion. And then we have the XFX, of course, and you know, the gain structure and stuff is pretty interesting. But sometimes, or usually, or often, what I'm noticing with the fractal modeling is that it's sort of, I don't want to say harsh, because that sounds a little bit too harsh. But yeah, the upper mids are a little bit too present at sometimes, as if Fractal Audio has done their best too much to give everything definition, you know, more string definition, more and more, as if there now is a little bit too much string definition. So that's sort of the other side. So the Helix, both are very close to real amps, obviously, but the Helix is doing that in a sort of pleasing and more rounded off way, if that makes sense. And the XFX does that in a little bit, it's a bit more raw than a real amplifier. There's too much, not harshness, like I said, but too much going on in the definition area. And it's not always really easy to dial it out. Anyway, that's like a really long answer to your question. I don't even know if I answered your question. For creating realism, well, yeah, so maybe my tip would be try some real amplifiers, and then go back to the modeler and then see how you feel about it, how you feel about the sounds that you're getting, stuff like that. And try to get to know the modeler, get to know how the master volume controls react, because sometimes people come to me and they say, dude, your preset sounds so awesome, but mine sounds so dull. And then they have like the master volume on their amplifier, the model, cranked to like 8 or something, which can make your real amplifier or model sound pretty dull, because the power tube saturation can really take off the lows and the highs, and then you're stuck with a lot of mid-range. And for instance, if you're going to try the Cali 4 lead model, which is based on the Mesa Boogie Mark IV, then you also need to back down that master volume a little bit to get more brightness, definition, and stuff like that going on. So, and of course, the most obvious one, use good IRs. All right, use some proper IRs and you'll be set. All right. Let's see. How are you guys doing? Let's have some fun and talk about anything you want. All right, ask me anything. And if it's a very messed up question, I might not answer it, but I'm going to do my best to answer all of your questions. I'd also love to talk to you guys about music. Tell me what kind of bands you've been enjoying recently. I would really love to know that. It doesn't have to be like an album from the last year. You're allowed to, of course, but it can also be something from 20 years ago. Let me tell you one thing. I've been listening a lot to Mark Tremonti's solo project and Alter Bridge recently, and man, really enjoying that. The riffs, and Mark Tremonti is really getting better through his career, because the first Alter Bridge album was a little bit, I don't want to say sloppy, but the solos were a little bit sloppy, I guess, but really cool. But that was kind of his thing. But I'm noticing that he's getting better and better and more tight, which is nice. And his solo records, damn, those have some heavy riffs. Damn. So I really want to know from you guys your favorite music artists, your favorite albums. Let's talk about the guitar tones from those albums. Let's discuss. Let's have some sick discussions about famous guitar tones. Sure. Evil Ash says, I've never owned a PRS. I'm looking to pick up a Gibson Les Paul Jr. Ebony. What are your thoughts on P90s? Great question. I talked about that a little bit when we talked about the semi-hollow PRS. But the thing is, I want to get a guitar with a non-baritone guitar with a P90 in the bridge. Right now, the Phoenix LTD over here has a Fat Cat, a Seymour Duncan Fat Cat in the neck, which is a sort of P90. It sounds really nice for clean and stuff. But I want to get a non-baritone guitar with a P90 in the bridge. And then I will give you a really a good opinion based on more experience, because in a baritone, it's quite a different experience. So it's hard to me to give you a proper opinion on P90s in standard tuning. So I'll get back to you on that. Scott Crickshank. Did you hear about the HX Stomp XL? Yes, I did hear about the HX Stomp XL. And I heard about it today. It seems like a great thing. I mean, I love my Stomp. Let's check out my Stomp here. This is my little Stomp, the HX Stomp. Really nice pedal. I mean, when this thing first came out, I was amazed at the idea of having the complete Helix, sort of, with its limitations, in a pedal this size. It's incredible. If you don't have one of these yet, there's something wrong. Everybody needs one of these. Doesn't matter if you're going to use it for effects only, because the effects are just amazing, or for amp modeling only, or even just for IR loading or whatever. This thing is just amazing. And one of my friends, a couple of friends have one actually, and they're all really enjoying it. And one of the guys I'm talking about is a bit of a younger player. He's Jasper, and he is about 23 or something. I'm not sure, 22. But, he doesn't have a lot of amps and a lot of pedals because he's a student. But then he saved up and he got one of these. And now he can do basically everything. Anything that he would want to do. Classic clean tones, classic crunch tones, hard rock, high gain, experimental tones with ambient sounds, pitch shifting, wah-wahs and stuff. Man. So this thing will enable a lot of musical pleasure, so to speak. And the new one is a bit longer, and it has a couple more switches, which is nice. And I do get where they're coming from, because obviously a lot of people were putting external switches on their HX Stomp. And why not have Line 6 do that themselves then, I guess. So yeah, if I didn't have this one, I would get one of those because it seems amazing. But yeah, so that's my opinion on the XL Stomp. Very cool. If you guys have any more questions about the Helix and Helix stuff, let me know. And also, for everybody who just joined, thank you for tuning in. We're going to have some fun. We're going to let loose, hang loose, however you want to call it. We're going to talk about stuff. We're going to talk about gear. We're going to talk about music. We can talk about movies. I've got, like I said, I got a bunch of movies and CDs here, so I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that sort of thing. And let's also discuss famous guitar tones. And what are your favorite guitar tones and why? Let me know your favorite album guitar tones, and we'll talk about that for a bit. That should be fun as well. All right. Did you hear? Billy Bosley, watching your videos had made me realize how close most amps sound. Ha. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute, because sometimes, and you guys know this, okay, because the guys that are watching now have probably watched my comparison videos and stuff. One quick plug. Did you guys see the 6.5 hour long amplifier comparison with 33 amplifiers? If you have not, please check it out. I worked on it for over a month and it needs more views. Just kidding, but do check it out. So sometimes I get comments from guys, oh, all the amps sound the same. Yeah, they sound the same on my speaker thing. On my telephone speaker. Okay, yeah. This is not the best device for checking out guitar amplifier comparisons. Anyway, the thing, what you have to realize is when you're listening to these comparisons, you have to keep in mind that every time I do a comparison, I record the guitar parts once, and then I reamp them through the amplifiers. So the performance stays exactly the same each time. Because if you don't do that, it's still fun and it's still cool to react to an amplifier and stuff like that. But if you, if you don't do that, if you keep the performances exactly the same, you're going to take out that variable. So now you're going to hear more of the actual differences between the amplifiers instead of, if I connect to an angle, I'm probably going to play some metal riffs, you know what I mean? And if I then connect my guitar to my plexi, my mini plexi, I'm going to play different types of riffs. That's just, but when you reamp, that does not change. So that's, one of the reasons why I like to do that like that. So that's one huge variable that stays the same throughout the amplifier comparison, okay? Then, of course, the guitar and the pickups, that's also the same, of course. So a huge portion of the sound is also staying consistent across the amplifier comparisons. And then it's going through the same signal chain. It's always the same person that you're hearing. It's always the same person, me in this case, of course, who dials in the amplifiers. I mean, I like to dial my amps in how I like them to sound. And sometimes people will say, you should put all of your controls to noon because otherwise it's an unfair comparison. And I really don't understand where that comes from, because every amplifier reacts so differently. And it's not as if the potentiometers of each amplifier are perfect in the middle. Absolutely not. I mean, some amplifiers like the MT15, for example, in my opinion, it sounds much, much better when you crank the treble a little bit, the Mark series from Mesa, you don't put all the controls at noon usually. Usually people want to make the bass tighter, so they dial down the bass, for example. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Anyway, I'm rambling here, but my amplifiers definitely do not sound the same. I can kind of understand why some people might hear it like that, but I guess you have to keep all those things in mind that I just talked about. And when you're listening, keep that in mind. Okay, this is the same performance, of course. So you're only going to hear the differences between the amps. All right, man. But thanks for your comment. Let's see. Priapatius, great name. Any plans making a video with an actual cab and all these great amps? In comparison with cab, IRs will be between cabs and IRs. Cheers from Greece. Well, at this point, playing, let alone recording through my actual cabs, just isn't really an option. And also, I'm just so used to the workflow of going into my load box at any level that I like, in the middle of the night, in the early morning, or when one of the kids is taking a nap or whatever. I just put my amplifier on this cabinet right here, plug it in, choose a nice IR, boom. And when I think, this doesn't sound exactly right, I take another IR and I tweak the amplifier a little bit and I play more. And then when I feel I want some more juice, I crank up my mixer and turn up the volume. So I've got so much control over my amplifiers and my entire guitar sound when I'm doing it like this. I can even add pre and post effects with any of my pedals or Axe effects, depending on what I've hooked up. So I don't see a reason to go ahead and go mic my cabinets, because I know that when I'm using the impulse responses that Kevin makes from Ownhammer, that my tone will be great. And that's just my thing. And there are other guys on YouTube who do mic up their cabinets more, like Ola, for example. So maybe that's something for them to do. Having said that, there are already a bunch of IR versus cabinet comparisons on YouTube, and I would recommend checking them out, because they will, hopefully give you a good feeling about impulse responses. All right, thanks for the comment and questions. Keep the comments coming, guys. Let's hang, let's talk. Let's talk about gear, music, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Rocket Raccoon, can you show me post-EQ processing your tone? I mean, what frequency you boost or cut? Sorry for English language. Greetings from Indonesia. Hey, Rocket Raccoon, thanks for tuning in. Indonesia, it must be really late or early there. That's probably... wow, that's about 4 in the morning or something. I hope you're still here and not sleeping by now. Okay, so I did a video last week on my channel about how I record and process my guitar tones. And in that video, you will get a very honest view of how I do this. And usually I don't use any EQ on my guitars. In fact, I try to avoid it at all costs, because I did used to use EQ more on my guitar tones. And every time I use EQ, I feel like the guitar tone is degrading a little bit, as if it's losing its natural tone or something, which probably doesn't make sense, but it's just something that I hear when I'm working on EQ on guitars. Maybe it's because when you look at the frequency curve of a guitar, you see all these little spikes and dips and stuff. And when you equalize, you're pushing all those little spikes up at the same time. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes, I guess when you look at different audio sources, the frequency, the little spikes will just have one spike going up and not the entire mountain or whatever, if you know what I mean, the frequency hill or mountain. Maybe there are ways to emulate that by adding a lot of notches or whatever, but that's just, then you're going to over EQ. So I try to avoid EQ at all costs. I choose a good IR. Basically, I start with an IR that I know well, usually. So those are like the OH1-05 mixes from Ownhammer, or the Forward 3 mixes from the Revolution series. I know how those sound, and I know which cabinets I like. So I load an IR up that sounds familiar, and then I take the amplifier and tweak the sound, and let's try another cabinet, and then I'll try another guitar cab. Oh, that's interesting. But when I then notice that the guitars have weird frequency areas going on, I just choose another IR or tweak the amplifier. But I almost never resort to equalization on the guitar tones. And I'm not lying. That's just how I prefer to do things. So if you want to sound like me, get some good IRs and practice, and try to avoid using EQ at all costs to get your guitar to sound natural. Try to rely on the original source as much as possible. And of course, we're in the virtual world. We're using digital impulse responses in my case. but those sound very natural, of course, in my opinion. Then that's an unbiased opinion, but nonetheless, it will sound natural, and you won't have to do any EQing. And if you feel, ooh, I need to do some EQ, go back to your amp, tweak the settings a little bit, keep it natural. A tube amplifier will usually sound natural as long as you don't go too crazy with the EQ controls. Do it within reason, and you will get great tones. But thanks a lot for the question. I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. And by the way, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm having a great time. I hope you are too. Let's talk about music, gear, and everything you want. All right. I don't know if I'm going too slow here, by the way. Every time I do these live streams, I just go through all the questions. Maybe I'll have to do it differently in the future. I don't know. Help me out and let me know what I should do. Kyle Fox says, the Soap Bar 27.7 is impossible to find. I got mine by pure luck. Phoned many dealers, none had it. An hour later, one phoned me back. You won't believe it. A used one just came through the door. Dude, Kyle, that's an amazing story. Great. Yeah, they don't make them anymore. They only made them for a couple of years. And I know that a lot of people like those guitars. So congrats. I hope it's a great guitar. Mine is near perfect. I mean, the frets aren't perfectly level like some of my other guitars. I'm pretty picky when it comes to action and string height. So that always stays in my mind. It bugs me a little bit. Oh, when I grab that amazing guitar, it will have a little bit of fret buzz on the 7th fret on the A string or whatever. That's how insane I am when it comes to fret buzz and stuff. All right, next question. XRIP1. Hey, you got to do a ranking list of your amps. Woo-hoo! List them in different categories so no company gets sad, or do a top 3 like best metal rock. Oof, man. That it basically could be a fun idea to make a sort of ranking list of my amplifiers, but I don't really tend to look at it like that because I see them all as different colors, as if I were a painter. That sounds so corny. But, sometimes you just want to have a classic sound. And then when you want a classic sound, there are a couple of amps in my collection that can do a great classic sound, like Marshall, the JCM 800 Mini, or the Plexi, or even the DSL 50. So, and with every guitar, each amplifier reacts differently. So some amps work well with a certain guitar, and some amps work well with another guitar. And for some songs, a certain amplifier works well for a certain guitar. But for other types of songs, another, and it goes on, because there are so many variables and so many combinations of amplifiers, cabinet sounds, and guitars that it's really hard to pick a favorite. It's really hard. I mean, if you would say to me, like, what are your best amps for really brutal stuff, which I want to do some sort of video on soon enough, by the way, that, tight and brutal, then I would say an Angle, like the Fireball 100. That's really brutal. Also, the EVH 5153 EL34, super brutal. The Rectifier is great, of course, but it's not super tight and gnarly, and I usually try to not use boost pedals too much, because I think if you use boost pedals too much, the amps will sound even more similar. And I would say like the Mesa Boogie Mark 535 or something. So that would be more, geared towards a certain sound or something. That's a really difficult one, but I'll think about it. Thanks for the suggestion, XRIP. Thank you. And also thank you all for joining in. Let's have some fun. Let's talk. Let's talk about what you want to talk about, and tell me your favorite artists right now, and the favorite guitar tones that you have in your head right now. Also, I still need to take a good listen to that Liquid Tension Experiment song. I hope it's awesome. I'm going to check that one out later. Oscar Burling. Hi, John. What monitors and or headphones do you use in your studio for recording, mixing, etc.? Cool question. Thanks. Right now, you can't really see it, but I have Adam A77Xs. Those are the big, wide monitors. Man, before I had those, I used the A7Xs, I think, the smaller ones. And those were cool, and I thought those were all amazing. But then I tried these, and I was like, damn, like this is really next level, in my opinion. I'm not like a super expert on that. I like how they sound a lot, and they have a bit more low-end extension, so I can really hear what's going on under 80 hertz, for example, So that's what I'm using for the speakers. And I recently got this guy here. Let me show you. The Slate Vsx headphones. Have you heard of those? These are headphones that emulate the sound of not listening through headphones, if I'm making sense. So when you listen on these things, these emulate the sound of listening music in an actual room as opposed to listening music on headphones. But they also include headphone emulations of, famous headphone models like the Beyerdynamics, which I also have. And those are cool, by the way, but they're not super flat, but they're quite nice to listen music on and to mix on sometimes. But I usually don't really mix on headphones. And for the past months, I haven't done a lot of mixing from scratch. I've just done a lot of work from my templates and stuff, which we can also talk about if you guys are interested. But I want to do more music creating when I get into my new studio and my new home in 2.5 weeks. And when I'm going to do that, I'm going to incorporate these more into my workflow, because it's a very interesting concept and it sounds great. Actually, it sounds very realistic. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I will keep you guys up to date on that, by the way. Thanks for the question, Oscar, and thanks for joining in. I really appreciate all of you guys joining in and hanging out and having fun. And feel free to join in and participate. And let me raise my desk chair here, because it's one of those, and it's a bit old. So at the beginning of the live stream, I'll be here, and then at the end, I'll be here. So sometimes I have to adjust the height. M. Konkels, what would be your top 3 amp manufacturers with the best amps across the board? Jeez, that's a difficult question, man. Assuming you're a man. Oh my God. Oh, that's such a hard question. I love all my amps. I have a special place in my heart for Orange amps, as you obviously know. I have a lot of Orange amps, and they don't make any bad amplifiers. Okay, 10 years ago or so, they had these little Crush things, and back then I didn't think those Crush amps were great. But the newer ones are supposed to be pretty awesome, by the way. I haven't tried them, but I've heard great things. But Orange really doesn't make a bad amplifier. So that's one of the amp manufacturers that has a special place in my heart. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of brands as well. Like, I love Hughes and Kettner as well, but I've only played through the models that I own, and I know that they have a huge backlog of all sorts of other amp models. So it's a bit hard for me to comment on them as a whole, as a company. I just know that I really love the amps from them that I have, if that makes sense. Same goes for Angle. I mean, I love the ones that I have, and I love the Powerball that I had, but I haven't tried a lot of the other ones, like the Savage and all that stuff. So it's really hard to comment about that, And of course, if you name a brand like Marshall, they have a lot of amplifiers. They have released a lot of amplifiers in the past that aren't so great. They have a lot of amazing amps as well, but also a lot of amps that aren't really great, a bit too cheap, a bit too much focused on effects and, earlier solid state Marshall-y type models maybe, and stuff like that. So, yeah, but Orange is one of those brands that has a special place in my heart. Yeah, I mean, I love the Angle stuff as well. I love the Hughes and Kettner stuff. I love my Mesa Boogie stuff. I think Laney is an underrated company. If you want a great rock or rock metal clean amplifier, whatever, the Laney Ironheart is hard to beat. You're going to find that out soon in my next comparison video with the Orange TH30, the Blackstar HT50 Club Mark II, the Laney Ironheart 60, and which one did I forget? The Hughes and Kettner Tube Meister Deluxe 40. It's coming out next week. do watch that because it's going to be a lot of fun. And those amps are so interesting when you compare them. Like the differences are so obvious. That's a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think I won't get a lot of complaints about the amps sounding all sounding the same. So stay tuned for that one. Ace X Oasis. Hey, dude, I know you. What's your favorite Wong's amp? Lol. Well, I've only played one, obviously. The HD. Oh, you can't see it, but it's right there. Wait, let me show you. There we go. The Wong's HD 15 is awesome. A lot of people commented on the videos that I did with that one that they really like the sound of that one. So, and thanks for the congrats on the new house. Yes, it's going to be epic. Robin Erhage or Erhaeg or whatever. Hi man, love your videos. What's your all-round best guitar and amp and cab? Whoo, dude. I get a lot of those questions, and I got a similar question just now. Really hard to answer because there are so many ways to look at it from so many angles. You know, if you're a rock player, it's going to be different than when you're a metal player, and when you're an old school thrash metal player, it's going to be different than a gent player. And when you're a 6-string player in the gent genre, it's going to be different than a 9-string player in that genre, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really impossible to answer. And I also like to, well, I don't want to, but I also like to view myself as an all-round player. I don't play just metal. I also like to play more classic rock type stuff. I like clean tones. I like rock and metal. So I'm not saying that I'm a very versatile player, but I have a broad preference when it comes to genres, I guess. And so I like to have a lot of tones at my disposal, and they all do various things. And I would not want to choose between any of these amplifiers because they are all awesome and they all serve a purpose. And some of them are just cool for the sake of collecting, like the Brent Hines and the the Rocker 15 Terror, because they look so cool together. That's kind of a collector's thing. But it's really, you're all around. Well, let me just say this. If you want an amplifier that does it all, but will always sound like a Marshall, then the answer is simple. Then it's the JVM 410H, because that's a Marshall, but it does everything. It does, it has 4 channels with 3 modes each, and it does clean, it does crunch, it does high gain, it does classic high gain, it does modern super high gain. It can go pretty aggressive as well, but it will always sound like a Marshall. Because it's a Marshall, and Marshalls usually sound Marshally, if that makes sense. Maybe that sounds stupid, but usually a Marshall just sounds like a Marshall. So that's a great amp. It's very all round, but yeah, you gotta love that Marshall tone. It's great for in the mix. I mean, Marshall tone has a lot of mids, a lot of presence usually. So, but if you're not really into the Marshall sound and you want something more refined and modern, then maybe the Hughes & Kettner Grandmeister Deluxe 40 is an amp for you. 4 channels, built-in boost, which reacts independently for every channel. So it will sound different on the clean channel than on the high gain channel, and so forth. It also has a bunch of effects. It has MIDI programming. It has a built-in power soak. So that's that's really next level when it comes to features and tonal options. But just like the Marshall, it will always sound like a Hughes & Kettner. You know what I mean? It has its own thing going on. Maybe the synergy stuff is something for you if you want an amplifier that does it all, because then you can get different brands in one amplifier. The concept sounds pretty amazing when you look at it like that. All right. And hi, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Feel free to ask me anything. Let's talk about gear. Let's talk about music. I want to talk about guitar tones. I want to talk even about movies, favorite YouTube channels, whatever. Let's have fun. I'm gonna try to get through all the questions here. So I'm sorry if it's taking a bit long before I get to your question. I hope that doesn't matter. Let's see. Kyle, by the way, would love some videos about songwriting and drum programming. The stuff you write for demos is top notch. Thank you. I appreciate it. I could do a video on drum programming. I have thought about it, but usually when I program my drums, I'm in this creative flow. You sit down and you just go ahead and program the drums, and before you know it, the drums are done. And it never really occurs to me, oh, I got to record this or something. And then it feels kind of forced. So I have to get used to the idea and then perhaps make a video about that, because it should be fun. Yeah, it should be fun. Maybe you guys will be very disappointed about how I vary my velocities or something. Kangaroo Jack, where are you from? Thanks for the awesome Helix content. Thank you, Kangaroo Jack. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm in the Netherlands right now. That's where I'm from. Thank you for your comment. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Let's have some fun here. Oh man, we're already 50 minutes in and I'm having a blast. With the whole lockdown thing, I'm not coming outside very often. I'm not seeing a lot of people very often. So it's nice to interact with some people. So thanks a lot for hanging out, guys. RD Ray, hi John. As you have both Helix and XFX, and I assume you like both, which do you pick for which purposes? I already talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the chat, the live stream, and I talked a little bit about the differences when it comes to how they sound compared to real amplifiers. They both sound a little bit different, and generally, I prefer the sound of the Helix, because it just works for me in how easy it is to get it to sound great in a mix. Not saying that the XFX can get great sounds. It can sound amazing. But there's something really nice about the Helix sound, the way the mids are rounded out or something. It's like it sounds very even and broad or something. Sometimes a little bit more polished, like the transients are sometimes a bit more gently saturated, if that makes sense, if I'm saying that in a understandable way. Anyway, so the Helix often really works well in a mix, and Helix native is then another factor that adds up to that, because it really helps when you can tweak your guitar tones in the mix while you're mixing. This guitar needs a little bit more treble. Here we go. I need to try another impulse response. Instead of the OH1 mix, which is a little bit bright and bass heavy, I need something with a bit more warmer mids. Let me try the bold mix or the chunk mix. The chunk mix sounds better. Voila. Maybe add a little bit more treble now, and then you add a little bit more treble, and then boom. So Helix native is like a huge plus for me for that reason, because and you can automate your effects, and it sounds awesome across the board. So. But having said that, I use my XFX a lot because I use it as my central audio hub, which I also talked about in my video from last week about my recording setup. If you haven't seen that video, do check it out. So yeah, my guitar goes into the XFX, and from there it goes to the amps, to my computer, to my mixer, etc. So I use that every day, and I use it a lot for impulse response loading in the cab block, because you can load 2,000 plus impulse responses, which for me, obviously, since I work for Ownhammer, is a huge benefit. That way I can really quickly audition IRs and try my amplifier through different sounds without having to go in my DAW, which will obviously also lead to some latency. And when I do that in my XFX, there is no latency. So I hope that kind of helps to answer that question. If not, I'm sorry. Dimitri returns. Love your drum mixing tutorial. What's the best 1176 emulation on the market in your opinion? For me, well, I can't say that I've tried all the 1176 compressor emulations. If you guys are not aware what those types of compressors are, I use the Slate stuff and it works for me. It just sounds awesome. I tried. I have the Native Instruments one, and I have some other ones, and those were cool. But for some reason, the Slate compressors they work really well and really fast. And one of the emulations which I like to use a lot and is free is the Monster by Slate, which is basically an 1176 with the all buttons in mode. So that means that it's on the maximum compression setting. It's kind of acting like a really aggressive limiter. Man, that does amazing wonders on the drum bus. I'm even using that on the final bus recently on a very, mildly mixed in, like 8% or something, maybe less, like 5%, to give it a little bit more energy, like the mix is moving a bit more. That's really nice. So if you guys have an iLock, I think you need an iLock for this, and you don't have the free version of the Slate mix rack yet, get it and get the Monster, because it's an amazing compressor for hyping stuff up. You need your snare drum to breathe more and sound bigger. Slap that thing on there, and boom, your snare drum is like explosive in a very nice and organic way, in my opinion. So yeah, that's my opinion on the 1176s. Thanks for your question, and thanks for joining in, guys. Having a lot of fun here. I need to drink more water because my mouth is getting dry from all of the talking. Dakleam. Sorry, I'm trying to pronounce you guys' names better. I'm working on it. Dakleam Toth. Agreed. Axifix is a mid-soup mess. A mid-soup mess. Interesting. I don't know what to say about that comment, but if you want to know my thoughts about the XFX's amp modeling in general, check out the comment from like 10 minutes ago or something. Billy Bosley, check out Baroness. The album is called Purple, or the new one Gold and Gray. Cool band. Yeah, Baroness. I saw them live at a festival a couple years ago in Nijmegen. Forgot the name of the festival, but Meshuggah was there as well. I think it was Forta Rock. Meshuggah was there. Oh, dude, Meshuggah rocked. It was so awesome. And I saw Baroness there as well, and it was quite nice. So maybe that's a band that I have to look into indeed. Thanks for the recommendation. I saw some interviews with them as well, with the singer and guitar player and the other guitar player. And yeah, I thought the guy was an interesting guy. But yeah, I need to check them out more. For sure. Westoned 666. What do you think of John 5? John 5 is awesome. I think he's awesome. I don't have any of his solo albums because I'm just not really into that. But I think with Marilyn Manson, it was really cool. I have those albums, Hollywood and The Golden Age of Grotesque, and maybe he did some other stuff for Marilyn Manson as well. And I thought he was a great match for him. And I'm glad that he kept with the makeup, John 5 wouldn't be John 5 if he didn't have that weird white hair, and the makeup and stuff really works for him. But he's an amazing guitar player, and I really love what he does with, the country and the chicken picking and stuff, and combining that with metal. It's really original, and he's a really talented player. It's not something that I listen to on a reg, if that makes sense. Thanks for the question. Pigoni, I just heard of an all-girl band from the UK. They're called Goat Girl. All right, I'm gonna check that out soon. Goat Girl. I'm not sure if I can go ahead and listen to songs on the live stream for their copyright stuff, but I'm gonna check that out later. Converge Dillinger, Carcass hard work guitar tone is great. I'm gonna need to check that one out. Carcass. I've never listened to them, but I assume they're heavy. Snooky Doo, hi all. Hi. Kyle Fox, how do I get the white pony tone with the Helix and the LTD SC20? Dude, that's the best question ever, and it's impossible to answer because Line 6 will have to add a JMP1 emulation or something to the Helix because it really needs that Marshall high gain tone. I don't know. The Friedman will not really get you there. Closest thing that will get you there is probably the Bedonk. Yeah, like the white pony tone is so hard to emulate. I've tried and I've failed. And I've even talked to Steph from Deftones about it on Instagram. And we chatted a lot about his guitar tones at one point. It was really interesting. And he was telling me about white pony. And yeah, it was like, yeah, it's just the JMP1. And I'm not entirely sure from memory, but I think he played them through his power amps back then, like the 9200s. And then he had Marshall cabs with T75s, and that was the basic sound. But there's something going on there with the miking or the spacing or the stereo width or whatever. There's something going on there that makes that sound very cool and special. It will be a sound that I love forever. So it's impossible to recreate, basically. But that guitar is a great place to start. The SC20 is a great place to start. And I think he also told me that he wasn't using the EMGs on that record yet, but not entirely sure. Brian L. Can you simplify loading Ownhammer IRs into the Stomp? Yes, of course. It's really simple. What you do is you go to your Stomp editor, you plug your HX Stomp in, you open the IR menu thing, and then you can do two things. One is just take your Internet Explorer or whatever Explorer thing you're using, select the IRs that you want to load, and just drag them onto the IR thing. And then they should, boom, appear. If that doesn't work for some reason, just click on the IR that you want to put a new IR in, and click on import, and then go ahead and select the IRs that you want to load, and boom, that's pretty easy, right? So that should work. Thanks for the question. And thanks for tuning in, guys. Keep the questions coming. Let's have some fun. I want to know more of your favorite guitar tones. I've heard Carcass so far. I've heard Goat Girl. I've heard about John 5, Baroness. Let me know which albums and guitar tones you really love, whether it's a new album from recently or something from the past. Let me know. Let me talk about one of my favorite guitar tones of all times. I talked about Rammstein earlier in the video, so we're not going to talk about that. But let's talk about Metallica. And let's talk about the load and reload guitar tones and the garage ink tones. Man, those are some killer guitar tones. They're so big and they have so much low end, but they're still tight. Really, really interesting guitar tones. And I've heard nothing quite like those guitar tones. Really quite cool. And you can also hear that they're combining amplifiers and they're combining different types of guitars, more classic sounding guitars with passive pickups, even single coil stuff, and weird like resonator guitars on songs like Low Man's Lyric. And they're experimenting with even different wah sounds, and different crazy pedals and stuff. So those are some of my favorite guitar tones when it comes to Metallica. That's one of my votes. Okay. Let's continue. Thanks for the questions, guys. I'm having a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in. Silver Patrick, do you find a difference in quality when going directly into the audio interface and then into Helix native compared to using Helix hardware? I haven't done a direct sort of comparison, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. I mean, every time I use the eye tracks from the Helix, it just sounds fine, but the level is a little bit different than the XFX. I think that the level of the DIs in the Helix is louder. I don't know, maybe like 10 or 12 dBs even. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but it's hard to say. They both sound fine. I mean, you should be able to get great tones from even some of the cheapest interfaces. Not all of them, probably, but people they seem to really focus a lot on, the DI quality has to be super good, and sometimes your DIs are pretty bad, and of course that sometimes is the case. But I think it also often has to do with stuff like the pickups, or even pickup height, or how hard you hit the strings, or the brand of strings, or how new your strings are, and how confident you're playing with your right hand and stuff. Because sometimes when you play really softly in general, some people just don't have a really hard attack. Sometimes the sound becomes a bit more muffled, and the pickups, they're not getting the juice that they need to sound, angry. So I don't have a lot to say about that. But to me, the Helix hardware does a great job of, recording DIs, if that makes sense. L asks, how do I get better at downpicking Headfield kind of level? Be careful and don't overdo it, but practice, practice, and try to not strain the entire arm and your shoulder and stuff. The energy that you're going to use for the downpicking, try to channel that as efficiently as possible. Make it feel as if you're throwing your hand, sort of, if that makes sense, like loose, not tensing up your entire arm. You'll have to do that to a certain extent to get those nice downward chugs going on at a super fast pace, but make it feel as effortless as possible, but still have it it still has to have power. So it will be you'll have to hit the strings hard in order to make it sound angry and as if you mean it. But make sure that you're not tensing up your whole body too much, and just do it efficiently, and make it feel sort of like a bounce, as if you're throwing your hand towards the string. It sounds kind of weird maybe if I'm telling this like this, but maybe that's something to keep in mind while you're playing it. Make it powerful, but keep it as effortless as you can. Make it let the energy be focused right on the moment when you're hitting the string, but at the same time, don't think about the physical thing too much. That's like a very important thing that I can tell you. Don't think about your body too much. Just think about relaxing and stuff like that. That's really important. I hope that helps. Thanks for the question. Great question. Miguel Nicolau, if you're playing a gig, would you take the Rockerverb 50 or one of the Lunchbox amps? Well, if I would be playing a gig, I would probably take the big one. Yeah, the Rockerverb 50. Dude, that's such an amazing amp. The Lunchbox amps are killer, but I think for a loud gig, you have to have something either louder or mic it up, or use something like the Boss Tube Amp Expander to make your low wattage amplifier even louder. That could be cool, and that could save you some space and weight as well. So, but the Rockerverb 50, oh man, that would be great to use that on stage. I think that would sound huge. Aiden Jones, do you think the XFX FM3 takes pedals well? Also, what FR would you recommend with it? I'm sorry, Aiden, I'm not the best person to answer those questions, unfortunately, because 1, I don't have an FM3. 2, I don't usually use drive pedals with the XFX at all. Whenever I use a drive pedal, it's usually just a drive pedal right in front of my amplifier in my setup, like an analog drive. Because again, it takes away that guess of, does it sound organic enough? Does it sound real enough? And when you just put a real pedal in front, you don't have to worry about that. It's real. It's analog. Just twist the knobs. You're good, So that's why I usually don't use digital pedals in front of my modelers or in front of my amps. Just regular pedals in front of my amps. But as you guys probably already know, I don't use a lot of drive pedals anyway, usually. So, and I haven't used an FR in ages, so I'm really sorry. I can't give you a good answer on that. Maybe some of the other guys can answer that for you in the chat. There are probably some knowledgeable guys in here. And thanks again for tuning in, guys. I'm having fun. And ask me anything. I've got some more juice left in me, so let's do this. Day Gansen, hey, nice to see you again. Just sold a guitar. Recommend me a new guitar to replace it. Okay, I'm going to recommend you a guitar. Seriously. I'm going to recommend to you this guitar. This is one of my more recent guitars, and it's easily in my top 3. This is such a cool guitar. I mean, when I first saw this thing, I was a bit like weirded out. Whoa, it only has one pickup. A Les Paul with one pickup? That's weird. It looks so clean. It looks so basic. But the sound and feel is just, it's so unique in a way. It's hard to explain the sound of this bare knuckle Aftermath, but you can also hear this guitar with this pickup in my last video that I released about my recording setup and how I record and mix my guitars. You can hear this thing through my dual rectifier, and it sounds so thick. If you haven't seen that part or that video yet, just put it on right now. Listen to that riff and let me know if you liked the sound. But it sounds really ballsy, thick, and clear. Not honky like a Seymour Duncan, if that makes sense. Not really with that barky bite, but more like clear in a little bit of a scooped way, sort of. There are mids in here, but not the same way as those mids would sound with the Seymour Duncan. It's a kind of weird way of explaining it. But anyway, this guitar is, it's freaking amazing. And it sounds and plays so well. This one was built in Korea. the overall quality of those Korean LTDs is just, overall it's really nice. And yeah, I really love this guitar. So this is like the guitar that I would recommend to you as of right now. Love it. And it's also 25.5 inches long, so it's great for lower tunings. I have it in drop C right now. Yeah, totally awesome. And the bridge pickup is the most essential pickup for most rockers anyway, so I hope that helps, Daiganzen. Aiden Jones says, Schecter Reaper 6 Inferno. Schecters are cool. I have one and it's awesome. Constantine M, love your channel. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Dutch 2G, you need more subscribers. When is the Paul David collab? Well, that's one of those dudes who is like leagues and leagues above me. He's Dutch, right? He's Dutch. You can hear that in his voice very clearly. He's awesome. He's great. I need more subscribers. Well, I'm working on it, I guess. I'm just making more videos for you guys. I hope you enjoy them. Barry Prosser, what is your favorite guitar and amp combination? Dude, that's impossible. There are too many combinations. I've kind of touched on this earlier in the chat, but it really depends on what kind of tone you're going for. It's really hard to say. Like for classic rock, okay, then I would probably really enjoy my Les Paul through one of my Marshalls. For something a little bit more modern or alternative, maybe that same guitar through an Orange. And maybe for really heavy stuff, I would choose either the new Phoenix or the one that I just showed you through a rectifier or something. It's impossible to answer. I'm sorry. I'm just too I don't know. I'm just too, I want to keep everything as open as possible. And I want to have a broad taste of the tones that I like, because I like to play a lot of different styles and stuff. So, but I do understand why certain people might want to find something like that. Just one amp that works great, one guitar that works great, and then forget about it and focus on the music. I really get that. I'm not like that, obviously. I like to experiment with sounds and try different amp guitar cabinet combinations and stuff. So for me, it's a never-ending journey or maze of guitar tones. Okay, Constantine M. Do you think Helix should model the EVH 5150? And what kind of EVH do you think is the best for modern metal? Okay, great question. Or what kind of 5150? Sure. The Helix should have an EVH model. Yeah, that would be great. Oh, man, people would love that. Yeah, why not? Absolutely. Yeah. And what kind of 5150 do you think is the best for modern metal? I think they all probably do that job very well. The one that I have, the EL34 version, the blue channel is a bit more vintage sounding. Vintage. It's more loose, more soggy in the low end. It's fatter, whereas the red channel is very tight and ballsy, and it has a lot of low end on tap and a lot of definition. So the red channel is great for modern metal. The blue channel is great for more different styles, perhaps, unless you use a boost, of course. But the new one, the Stealth, or the white one, the regular one, those are also great for modern metal across the board. Yeah, I'm seeing some fun questions down the list from some guys that I know. I'm going to try to get to your questions soon. I hope you're hanging on here while I keep on babbling about nonsense. Yeah, modern metal, most of them will do that well, but maybe check out the 606 versions. Let's see. Love your Schecters though. Looking for an HSS guitar possibility. I'm not an HSS expert at all. I'm sorry. Tomas Moreno. Hey, say hi to Chino for me, by the way. Hey, what are your thoughts about the ESP E2 line versus LTDs? Wishing you the best. Thanks for the question. Great question. And thanks for tuning in. Well, I haven't had an E2 myself, but I did have an ESP Eclipse a couple of years ago. Was a pretty cool guitar, but I didn't feel like it was better than my LTDs because I've got some really nice LTDs, in my opinion, and those sound great. You know, the wood is resonant and they play great and they look awesome. And the ESP was probably built a little bit better, and the wood was a bit more dense than some of my LTDs, but the frets weren't great. So yeah, but I have the ESP LTD Elite 1 Eclipse. Let's see. Let me grab that. This is a guitar that I've used a lot in videos. It was a bit of a workhorse. It still is a bit of a workhorse for me. But this was made in Japan. So it's an LTD Elite. They only made these for a year or so. And it's an LTD series that was made in the factory where they make the ESP or E2 guitars, as far as I know. It's made in Japan anyway. Oh, it doesn't say Japan. But yeah, it's made in Japan. Oh, yeah, it's on the sticker right here. But so this is supposed to be quite similar to the E2s when it comes to the build quality and the sound quality, and it's a great guitar. It's it's got a great resonant sound, and the JB pickup obviously is a great pickup, and it matches this guitar very well. But yeah, I mean, my LTDs, most of my LTDs are just as awesome, equally as awesome as this Japanese made one and the one that I had. So the LTDs are great. Don't underestimate the LTDs. But yeah, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's see. Seth Filippo. Hi, nice to see you again, Seth. Hey, John, do you see yourself adding a Friedman amp to your collection? I would love to. I mean, I would love to have like the Jerry Cantrell, even the mini one or the big one, but those are expensive. They cost so much money that it's really hard. And I mean, anytime I would have that amount of money, it would be hard to not having spent that already on whatever guitars or other more affordable amps, or, you know, my family or stuff for my new house or a PlayStation 5, hopefully, fingers crossed, sometime soon. So I don't see myself buying a Friedman, to be honest. Maybe the little one. I mean, I would love one, but yeah, they cost so much money. And maybe if I had that money for an amplifier, I would prefer a Diesel or something over a Friedman, because I would love to have a VH4. But yeah, the brown eye from Friedman, of course. Yeah, I would love one, but it's just too expensive. And for good reason, because they're amazing amps. Aiden Jones, people in the stream, do any of you have an MT15? If so, is it too loud for bedroom playing, even at 7-watt levels? If you happen to have it as well as the Invective, which one is better? Ha! Well, he asked you guys. He didn't ask me. Ooh, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I use Loadbox usually, so for me, it's loudness isn't an issue ever. The Invective is supposed to sound similar to the 6505 MH, and that one sounds really nice. I mean, it sounds very close to the big 6505 that I have over here. Here's the little one down here. But maybe it's a little bit more rounded off. You know, the big 6505 just has such a big presence, and it has so much headroom that it sounds huge. And the 6505 MH just sounds a little bit more, you know, toned down, but it's still an awesome sounding amp. It can sound huge if you don't compare them directly. It would be hard to tell if it was the MH or the big one. But the MH amps are great for bedroom levels. But the MT15, it's kind of loud, even when you have the volume set quite low. So yeah, thanks for the question. Andrew Z. Hi, John. I have a Fender Princeton 65 reissue for clean tones. I'm looking to buy a Marshall Studio for distorted tones. Which one would you recommend? Okay, so the Marshall Studio series are great. I have them all. I have the JCM 800, of course, from one of my recent blind test videos. I'm sure you guys have seen those. I have the Plexi, which is great for those really old school, like Led Zeppelin-esque tones. And then I have the Jubilee up here. And it really depends on what kind of tone you want. I mean, the JCM 800 is great. It has a lot of bite. It sounds classic. It sounds like a Guns N' Roses type amplifier. It works really well with humbucking pickups. For clean tones, it's more great with single coil pickups in some occasions, but it does not have a lot of gain. So if you want to play metal on that, you'll need a boost, in my opinion, like modern metal and stuff. Then the Plexi, like I said, is great for more vintage stuff, but it's quite hard to get. It's kind of impossible to get modern guitar tones out of that one. So that's really for the vintage Marshall stuff. The JCM 800 is somewhere in between. And then on the other end, we have the Silver Jubilee, which has a bit more tonal shaping options, like the rhythm pull clip to make the distortion sound a bit more bitey and defined in the upper mids and in the mids. And it has the two channels, so the lead channel and the rhythm channel, and those have a bit of a different sound. And the EQ section is also really powerful. So when you turn up the bass, you can really hear the difference. And with the other two, sometimes the EQ is very subtle because they're more old school. Keep that in mind. And watch my comparison, because I have a comparison where I compare all four Marshall 20-watt amps, including the 3 studio amps and the DSL 20HR. Which is a different beast altogether. Constantine M. Trivium guitar tone on their last album is PV-XXX. Do you heard of that? Have you heard of that amp? It's awesome. I've heard of it, but I've never tried one. But it seems like a very cool amp. Yeah. I need to check more of those sort of slightly more obscure PV heads out, because they're quite interesting. Thorsten B. My favorite guitarist, Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde. Yeah, man. I was at this festival like 14 years ago. Man, time flies. And there was Dream Theater and Megadeth and Korn and I don't know, a bunch of bands. And I also saw Ozzy at the end of the day. And then Zakk Wylde solo came, and it was shredding away. And he's great. He's a fun guy and a great guitarist, but it's not like really my cup of tea. And then we were like, okay, let's go home. It was late, so we went home and we walked to the car. It's with these festivals, it can be quite a long walk. So for my memory, I felt like it took 10 minutes at least to get to the car. And when we were at the car, the solo was still going on, still shredding away. So that's a kind of funny memory. I was like, whoa, he's still shredding. Where the hell is Ozzy, Okay, Seth Filippo. Do you know if there are any plans to expand the Revolution cabs? Really love that cab back, especially those Marshall cabs. Well, I can't really talk about future products. Sorry. I mean, it would be great. I love those cabs as well. If you've seen my videos, you've seen me use those IRs a lot. Cosman, hello. Yes, please talk about your templates. Yes, okay. I have this, I'll discuss this briefly, just quickly. I have this one template, and when I open it, it's basically already mixed. So the drums are mixed, and there's already stuff on the master fader, like the limiter and master bus compressor. And the drums are, of course, programmed from the Stephen Slate drums. So the levels are also always the same. So when I track my guitars too loud, I'm going to notice, because the drums are like the bass line. The drums are always the same. So when my guitars are a bit too loud, I turn them down because the drums aren't loud enough. So if that makes sense. And same goes for the bass. I've got a Helix native bass tracks set up, one for cleaner tones and one for more aggressive tones. Just track my bass and boom, it's already done. So that's just really easy for me to get creative. On the other hand, sometimes I think I should experiment more with drum sounds and stuff for my music. So maybe I'm going to use more different stuff in the future. But yeah, so I got my drums, I got my effects all loaded up. The drum channels are going into the drum bus. I've got a video on that, by the way. And then that goes to the master fader and those bass guitar tracks also. And the guitar tracks, I usually just make 2 tracks for the distorted parts and send them to a bus. And then I add a couple of tracks for clean tracks or stuff and add them to a bus, and then all to the master bus. So it's quite simple. Maybe I'll have to do a dedicated video on that someday. Thanks for asking me that. Tech Death Hippie. Awesome. Cool name. I bought the Mud Killer because of you. I love that pedal with my Bogner Ubershelf. Very cool. Yeah, that's a great pedal. It's a very flexible metal overdrive pedal. It's not just metal, but it's just it's one of those pedals that works great for metal because you can make your tones very tight and aggressive with the mud control and stuff. So very cool pedal. And you have a Bogner Ubershelf. That's awesome as well. Cool. Okay, Rockin' Rubno. You know, I know how to pronounce this guy's name, but I'll say it like this. Rockin' Rubno. Tell us about your toy collection. If you're still here, Roger. I love my toy collection, but at this point, the only toys that are visible are my Xenomorph and my T-Rex, because those are awesome. But in my basement, I have a huge box, like it's about this big, filled with action figures, alien figures, Jurassic Park dinosaurs, stuff from when I was young, Terminator figures and stuff like that. And in my new studio, I hope to have enough space to put all of them in again, and maybe I'll shoot a little video then for you guys, so that I can lose a couple of subscribers. Nah. But thanks for the question, Roger. Thanks. More people should ask me about my action figures. Almost nobody ever mentions my alien. That's really sad. Poor alien. It looks a bit sad up there, don't you think? It's a bit sad. Talk about your tattoos. Well, this one is awesome. This is my most recent tattoo. It's my first Metallica tattoo. It's one of my all-time favorite songs from one of my favorite bands. So yeah, Carpe Diem, baby. That's a tattoo that I'm really happy with from recent times. Miroslav Labaj. Hi there. Do you edit? Oh, wow. Thank you. I got a super chat. That's really kind. Thank you so much, Anthony. I really appreciate it. Just wanted to drop by, say hey, and thanks for sharing your knowledge and gear. Such awesome tones and amps. Always learn a ton from watching your videos. Rock on. Thanks, Anthony. I really appreciate it. That's very nice and very kind of you. Very, very awesome. Yes, I appreciate it. And you didn't even ask me a question, but yeah, I'm really grateful. Thank you. All right, I'm going to carry on with the questions. Miroslav Labaj, hi there. Do you edit the iTracks before it hits the amp? And what is your favorite passive pickup? Sure, I edit my guitar tones. I don't track my songs in one take, of course. So sometimes I, punch in riffs or certain sections and stuff, and then I hit the amp. Yeah, instead of doing it after, of course. Yeah, because it makes the reamping process way quicker. And what is your favorite passive pickup? Whew, dude. Well, the Seymour Duncan JB is a great contender because it's just awesome for all sorts of styles, and it really has a great definition and bark and chunk. But as I was talking about earlier in the thing as well, this guitar over here has a bare knuckle. This is the only guitar that I've ever owned that has a bare knuckle. It has an aftermath pickup. Great sounding pickup. I guess I'd say those two right now, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are other favorites as well. But yeah, the JB is really, really nice passive pickup that I would recommend to anybody for any genre. Absolutely awesome. Tech Death Hippie. Are new Fireballs the same as the 60? I don't think so. I talked to someone on Facebook last week about the Fireball 60, and I asked him, does it also have the noise gate? And I think it does not have the noise gate or something. And I also heard that they are a bit less defined in a mix. I like cranking the mids and the treble up on those amps anyway to make them sound more, defined and in your face. Really helps, especially to crank the treble. Be careful with the presence though. But I've heard that the old Fireball 60s are a bit less suitable for in a mix. But I don't have any experience with the 60-watt version, so I can't say. Sorry. But thanks for the question. XRip1, a bit opposite to Tremonti. Love Tie the News. Tip is listen to Devin Townsend's Funeral live version for great, heavy, atmospheric tones. Great channel. Keep it up. Thanks for the comment. I have seen Devin live a couple times, and he's a great performer. He's a great writer, and I've also listened to some of his albums. But for some reason, I can't really get into that. I don't know why. I think he's great, and I will give it another chance. I've told this myself yesterday. Yeah, I need to check him out more because he's so cool, you know? So maybe I need to check more of that out. Thanks for the suggestion. Definitely going to check that one out. Snooky Doo 1. I was very surprised about the clean tone in the orange from one of your last videos. Yeah, you probably mean the comparison between the Rock Reverb, the 6505, the rectifier, and the JVM 410H. If you haven't seen that video, the big amp comparison, definitely check that out and stay tuned for my next one next week with slightly more affordable tube amps with a lower wattage rating, like the orange TH30H, the Hughes & Kettner Tubemeister Deluxe 40, the Black Star HD Club 50 Mark II, and the Laney Ironheart 60. Stay tuned for that. But yeah, the clean tone from that orange is really nice. Very nice. Yeah. It was so happy clean, wide, bright, really like a God's garden. A God's garden. Dude, that's whoa, you know? Like a God's garden. Well, it's a very nice clean tone. What can I say? Like a God's garden. There you go. Matt Earhart. Could you do a comparison of tube amps with a direct out with a mix of cab sims, Hughes & Kettner PV, Fender Bass Breaker, etc. Rev. I would love a Rev. I've never tried a Rev, but those seem like great amps. A comparison of tube amps with a direct. I don't know. Maybe. Doesn't seem super interesting. If that, I mean, I don't mean that to be harsh, but yeah, the onboard cab sims in general, they're not as good as proper impulse responses, if that makes sense. So it usually feels like a downgrade in tone to me. Some of those direct tones are great, though. I mean, the red box from Hughes & Kettner is supposed to be great, but it's just a bit boring to me because it's kind of really a video for consumers, you know. So which amplifier has the best direct sound? And I prefer to be a little bit more, it sounds a bit stupid maybe, but a little bit more creative. But maybe I'll keep it in mind. Thanks for the suggestion. Thank you for the suggestion. Cosman, thank you for the JS IRs in the IR packs. When overwhelmed with IRs, I know if I go with the JS one, I'm good to go. Oh, that's great to hear. Cool. I'd love to know which amp and amp models and stuff you're using. I love the JS mix as well. It originated years ago when I was using the XFX a lot, and I needed an IR that sort of tamed some of the pronounced upper mid-range of the XFX a little bit, and it has a lot of low end as well. So if you're using very bright tones, you know, with a lot of tube screamer boost, with a lot of tone, you know, punching through that amplifier and making it cut and tight, then the JS mixes can be very nice. For other amps, they can be a little bit dark. So it depends on how you dial in your tones, but I'm glad you're enjoying that IR mix. Thank you. Some other mixes that I always recommend are the OH1 mixes from the Quick Start folders or the Forward 3 mixes from the Revolution series. Kevin from Ownhammer engineered those just perfectly. They're like the perfect middle ground for every cabinet. I very often go back to the OH1 mixes because they work so well for anything. Pip Priss asks, how are you doing during the pandemic situation? Heard you again have some hard rules in the Netherlands. That's where you come from, right? Yes, I'm from the Netherlands. How am I doing? Well, I'm doing okay. I mean, I've got 2 kids, and those are very often at home now. They're usually at home instead of at school or at their daycare. So it's harder to find moments to make, you know, longer videos or to record my monologues. So for work, it does have a bit of an influence. And I miss hanging out with friends, you know, that's something that I miss, but I'm kind of I'm one of those guys that I'm very comfortable with myself, being with myself on my own as well. So I'm a lot of musicians have those let's say capabilities. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. You're able to hang out with yourself and just enjoy your gear and maybe your music or movies. Creative people like to watch other creative things, of course. So it's not hitting me that hard, but it's a bit annoying since we're going to move to a new house soon. And we have to, there's like this curfew now that you can't go out of your house after 9 o'clock. So if I would go outside now, and if the cops would see me, they would arrest me. So that's a bit different. But yeah, I'm hanging on here. I'm doing okay. But it's I hope that the world gets better as soon as possible, because we need to go out and we need to enjoy music and we need to enjoy eating with each other, and hang out. And yeah. Let's not get too serious here, but thanks for the question. That was a different question than all the gear stuff. I appreciate it. Otto Z, what was the name again of the song you guys recorded for the Assassin's Creed game? The Chosen by Intwine. You're old school. You remember that stuff. I have an action figure of what's that guy called again from Assassin's Creed 1? I have this action figure from him. Yeah, The Chosen. That was a fun track. I used my old Ibanez MMM1 baritone guitar for that song with let's see, the Blackout, Seymour Duncan Blackout pickups, but I don't have that guitar anymore. But thanks. Cosman, also, do you do music for video production? Work with a library, house, or indie? If so, any tips, advice? I'm not sure what you're asking. I do all sorts of music. Sure. If you want to hire me, send me a message. And I'm not sure if that's what you wanted to know. Antius or Anteas? Hey man, how are you? Do you remember the triple XHS? Triple XHS? I managed to repair. I'm happy. All right, man. I'm happy for you. I hope you enjoy that. Pim Jacobs. Hi, John. Are you ever record guitars in stereo? If not, why not? I was wondering with all those stereo effects. Well, in fact, I tend to record all my guitars in stereo, and that's just some sort of habit that I've developed. And a lot of times people ask me, why do you record all your guitars in stereo? Because often they're just mono, but then, on a stereo track. And it supposedly costs more CPU, but doesn't really seem to matter a lot. But I one of the reasons why I do that, which is probably not logical reasoning, is that it's easier for me to then add stereo effects to the tracks and stuff. So I always record in stereo. And usually when I add stereo effects, like stereo delays or reverb or something like that, I tend to do that in my DAW. And I don't always make sense. I also just like to drop a reverb right on the track. So if it's a mono track, it's not as easy to get them to sound stereo in my recollection whenever I tried that. So, but I'm kind of, when it comes to my workflow, some of those things I just do because it's just what I do and I just want to focus on the music. So I'm not an expert when it comes to this topic. But it works for me. It works fine. Thanks for the question. I really appreciate it. And again, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm having a good time here. Let's try to answer all of your questions. Keep them coming. Bravata. Okay. I've seen you before. Bravata Wildcat. Or is it Bravada or Bravada? Bravada. Those names are hard for me, guys. Would love to see you grab a Baba Yaga 2C Plus pedal from Master Effects and plug it into some amps power section. It's a 2C Plus lead tube preamp in a pedal format with a tone stack and a 5-band EQ. Interesting. A tube preamp. And does it sound like a 2C Plus? Well, I would love to try one. Yeah, thanks for the recommendation. I bet they cost €600 or something. Christian Albert. Do you prefer the 6L6 or EL34 tubes in your rectifier, and why? I've never tried my rectifier with EL34s, so I can't comment on that. But I love the sound just fine with 6L6s. And whenever I grab my rectifier, I want that classic rectifier sound, which is usually 6L6 tubes. And the mini rectifier has the EL84s. So that one already has a sort of a slightly different tone, a bit more mid-focused, a bit more mix-ready, a bit less scooped as the dual rectifier. So I've got those two flavors, and that's enough for me. So that's why I never tried the EL34s, but never say never. Thanks for the question. Scarlet 4. Hey, John, whatever happened to the song Rise? Can't find it on your SoundCloud. That song. Oh my gosh. Well, sometimes when I record a song, and then I finish the song and I put it on the internet in a video, or I used to put my songs on SoundCloud. And then I kind of forget about them because I don't spend months working on the song and ingesting the song and living with the song, if that makes sense. I like to finish my song, put it out there, and boom, then it's done. And this is one of those songs, I think I know which song you mean, but I'm not entirely sure. Is it one that I sing in? Let me know, because I thought about that song recently. That was a song that was also used in some Slate Digital tutorial videos. I'm not entirely sure. Thanks for the question. Could be instrumental as well. I don't remember. Stupid me. Philip V. Opinions on the THU rig player and soft tube amp room. Never tried the soft tube thing. The THU rig player is a great concept. The rigs that I tried, they weren't all amazing. There were some profiles in there that worked well, and a lot of them didn't work for me, which kind of echoes the experience that I had with my older Kemper before I got my more recent Kemper Stage. The reason why I love my Kemper Stage at this moment so much is because I'm able to profile my own amplifiers. That's the whole idea, of course, of the Kemper as well. And you can't do that with the THU rig player. So I think it only makes copies of profiles, if that makes sense. You can't profile your own amp, so it's kind of hard for me to give an opinion based on the workflow, if that makes sense. But thanks for the question. The soft tube stuff is supposed to be really nice. Cosman, Nick Hill is getting amazing results with Helix. Yes, between him and you guys are Helix gurus. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Nick is awesome. Check out Nick Hill's channel. He's great at modern metal and stuff. His last video, his tutorial about how he mixes guitars and stuff, it's very interesting as well, and I recommend watching that one as well. It's an hour-long journey where he talks about all his guitar tones, and he's much more he goes much more in depth with that stuff, with all the different layers and textures, and which is really quite interesting. I'm much more basic. I tend to focus a lot on just the basic musical idea, like the bread and butter, and I don't layer too much usually. But he is really great at adding all these layers and making it all sound very epic and huge. So definitely check Nick Hill out. He's awesome. So mijn name. So mijn name, or mijn naam. Sorry. What is your approach to pickup height? Maybe opinion on active versus passive pickup height. This is one of those topics where it's something that I don't really pay a lot of attention to. If it doesn't sound right, I'll tweak the height. If I notice that, for instance, my neck pickup is way louder than my bridge pickup, I usually bring the bridge pickup up a little bit and the neck pickup down a little bit, to equalize the differences a little bit. As long as it sounds good, it works, As long as it doesn't get in the way of the pick, it works. So I'm not really an expert on that. I just go by my feeling. So I don't have a lot of useful things to say, but thanks a lot for the question. Gabriel Moreira. Hey, John, some of my favorite tones are the latest Decapitated record, Anti-Cold. Cool, Decapitated, so awesome. I saw them live once. Sick. That was a concert in Eindhoven. And Sugar played as well. Devin Townsend, Opeth, Fear Factory. Oh, man, so many great bands. Decapitated as well. Oh, they were crushing. And then Meshuggah played, and they were so awesome. And they played Dancers to a Discordant System. And that track is a B-side. The actual live version from that show is a B-side from the Pitch Black EP, if I'm correct. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, Decapitated is sick. Also, can't go wrong with Nevermore's Dead Heart and a Dead World. I've heard someone mention that record. I've never heard it myself, but yeah. I will also add that to my listen to list. Guitar tones, Dimebag Darrell, obviously. Ian Vase, Vision of Disorder, Imprint, so raw and nasty. I'll add that to the list as well. Josh R. I'm about to buy a Tiny Terror hand-wired. Whoa, cool. But I'm concerned about its low end. It seems a little thin. What do you think? I don't think a Tiny Terror sounds thin at all. It's not the most modern amplifier. It's not the most modern sounding amplifier. And obviously, it's a 15-watt amplifier with 2 EL84s. So it does not have a ton of headroom. And that's something to keep into consideration. Don't crank it up too loud. Because it will get a little bit more mushy, I think. I'm not sure if that's the case with the Tiny Terror amps, though, because of the way that those are designed. Because their engineer, Aid from Orange, explained in a video that that amplifier was built so that however you set the gain and level, I'm not sure if that also is the level, but it's supposed to hammer the output tubes evenly across the potentiometer. But I will probably get more thin sounding as you crank it up too loud. Maybe try the Dual Terror because it's 30 watts. You can turn it up louder. It has louder. It's back here. It has the fat channel as well for some extra flavor, and it has the Tiny Terror channel as well, and it sounds really nice, big, and chunky. And yeah, I think the Tiny Terror and Dual Terror have plenty of low end. And if there isn't enough low end, maybe try a different cabinet, a cabinet with more low end. Constantine M. I'd love to work with you by sending you DIs for my projects and stuff like that to mix and master. Great. Do you do that job? Yes, I do. Just curious. Don't know when I finish my project. Yes, I do mixing and stuff, reamping, basic mastering. So yeah, feel free to shoot me a message, preferably on my Facebook Sonograph Studio page or something, and we'll work something out. Sure. Pim Jacobs, do you have a band? No, I don't currently have a band. Are you playing live? No. I make music here, and that's all I do at the moment. I've played live a lot in the past, and it's great fun, but I also enjoy working by myself. It's all about creating. And if I create something very cool on my own, and even if I'm the only one that's listening to it, that's already very gratifying. So I don't feel an urge to play live. I do feel a big urge to see bands live again. I have a very strong urge to see Rammstein live again. The tickets are burning a hole in my pocket. Jorge, Guitar 25. Hello, what's the cheapest versatile amp head you own or recommend? The cheapest versatile amp. I will like to get my first amp. Also, will you ever demo micro amps like the Joyo Zombie Orange Micro? I would love to try the Orange Micro amps. I would love to try them. The cheapest versatile amp. Oof, that's a hard one. The cheapest. Well, maybe the Laney IRT Studio. That's pretty affordable and very versatile. Let's see, what else do we have that's very versatile and cheap? The MT15 is not the most versatile amp, but it's very affordable. It's not great at crunch, but it's great at very pristine clean tones, and it's great at high gain stuff. And it's very affordable. The Tubemeister Deluxe 40 from Hughes and Kettner. I don't know if you probably can see it, but it's here. That's also reasonably priced. But as I said earlier, I'm going to do a video next week with 4 more affordable amplifiers with a medium wattage rating. So be sure to check that out as well. Ivan Petrov. Let's carry on for a little bit here for about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to answer your questions as quickly as I can now. So would the EVH 5150 work well for late 80s, early 90s hard rock sound like Lynch Mob, Wicked Sensation, and Skid Row? I'm not really familiar with those things, but yeah, probably. Maybe a Marshall would be better. Marshall amps are great for those types of genres, but sure, EVH can do that. But with the EVH amps, you just have to keep in mind that it will usually... It's kind of hard to dial out the EVH sound, if that makes sense. On the 606 version, the blue and red channels are both very tight and aggressive, and you can't really dial that out, if that makes sense. And with a Marshall, for example, Marshall may sound a bit more gentle, like the DSL 50 here, but you can make it more aggressive with a good boost. So then you have a more flexible sort of baseline to work from. Maybe that's something to keep in mind, but thanks for the question. Or what you could do is buy a good tube amp with a great clean channel and buy a Friedman BEOD. I have that up here somewhere. Some kind of cool preamp pedal to enhance the tone of your amp. William Weiler. Hi, John. Do you plan to record something for us with the Neural DSP amps? Cheers from Brazil. Thanks for the question. Not really planning anything, to be honest. No. But could be fun, could be fun. Andrew Z. Cool, thanks for answering my question. Yes, I've watched your Marshall studio comparison. Thank you. Thanks for the comment. Ben Jofft. Which amp sim VST do you think is the best? Helix Native, definitely. Hard to beat for various reasons. Anthony, thanks again for the super chat, man. Really appreciated that, and thanks for your kind words. It means a lot. Jay Larson. Hi, John. Do you ever listen to any Japanese groups? A lot of those guys have really great tones. No. Let me know which band I should check out. Cosman. Bedonk with Mesa and Diesel use both V30 EuroJS. Great. I hope you're getting some killer tones out of those amp models and that IR. Suomi Perkele. What's up? Your message has been revoked. What's going on there? Are you shy today? George or Jorge Guitar 25. I find Ownhammer IR's dark sounding. Is this why when you use amp sims you boost the tone knob on the overdrives and the presence on the amps? I don't see that with your real amps. I don't think that matches my experience at all. Some of them are dark. Some of them are supposed to be dark for people who like to use very bright amps with a lot of focus on the upper mid-range and treble region. I don't find them dark at all. And I don't think that I crank the presence on my real amps differently than on certain amp models. So I don't know. That does not match my experience. And I also... when I use an overdrive pedal, which I don't do very often, but when I do that, it's usually to make guitar sound very aggressive and genty, you know? So in those types of guitar tones have a lot of mid-range definition and a lot of bite. So then I crank the tone knob, but that's just for a certain tone. That does not have a lot to do with the overall frequency curve that an IR, you know, gives a guitar tone. So that's a kind of a different thing. And I like my tones kind of bright in general. I like to have a nice cut and presence in the mix. So, I don't know. Maybe you're using a load box with a dark sound, or maybe a modeler with a dark sound, or pickups that are a bit dark. I'm not sure. But thanks for the question. Orion, what do you think about the Bugera? I haven't tried a Bugera ever. Bugera. Would you be interested in making the demo of this amp? Maybe. Would be a cool addition to the mega amp comparison videos. Well, I'm not interested in getting one as of now. But interestingly, I think I I tried an amp model based on this amp in the THU plugin, and I thought that one sounded pretty cool. So maybe it's something to check out. But they're a bit off my radar, that brand, for reasons, similar reasons why other people might be a little bit turned off by them, because they make fake amplifiers, sort of, but then again, a lot of brands copy schematics from amps. So, something to think about. Suomi, Altair, yes, that's the Altair. That's the guy from Assassin's Creed. Thanks for the reminder. George or Jorge. I tried red wires and they are super bright. It gets underwhelming with lots of IRs. Any tips? Well, with those IRs, I haven't tried those in like 10 years, but you have to make your own mixes. And I prefer to use, obviously, the Ownhammer IRs with pre-made mixes, because then it's just one click and boom, there's your sound. You don't have to choose all these different mic settings. You can if you want to. You can dive deeper always, but just want to be creative and get some great tones and get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Ted Fair, how do you compare the EVH 5153 with the Angle Fireball? Dude, that's a great question. Well, over here we have the Angle Fireball 100, and over here we have the EVH. The clean tones on the EVH are a bit boring, in my opinion. They're very clean, very still, sort of. Very clean, yeah. I'm just not a huge fan. I prefer clean tones, like the one from this one. More chimey, more range on the gain pot, more, more gain, so that you can get a nice compression from the clean channel going on. So I prefer the clean channel on this one. The crunch tones on this one aren't amazing. The high gain tones are very nice. This one just sounds a bit more industrial and raw. It has a very, unique German industrial sound. It's hard to explain, but very unique. But it's hard to beat the EVH as well. So I love them both. Maybe I need to do some sort of comparison video. Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Yes. Rogerio Paixoto. Sorry if you've answered this already, but what do you use to reamp? For that, I would really highly recommend checking out my video from last week about how I record and process my guitars. I explain everything in that video, basically. Florian Wolf. Hey man, how do you gain your DI signal for amp sims, input trim in the plugins or over the preamp? As I explained earlier in the live stream, I record most of my DIs with my XFX3, and then the DI level is set, and I never change the DI level. Sometimes when a plugin is a very low input, I would boost the input or something to get a bit more gain out of it, but no magic happening there. Pim Jacobs, one more question. Are you buying new or used guitars? What do you prefer and why? I like both. It's all good to me, as long as it's a good guitar. I've ordered a lot of guitars, and very often they end up nice, luckily. I've sent one or two back for various reasons. So yeah, both is fine. Gilogica, what's the next piece of gear you're looking to acquire? Ooh. Oh man, I bought a lot of stuff for my new studio. I bought a 19-inch rack with about this tall for my XFX, my Helix rack. I'm going to put my JMP1 in there probably, and my Digitech G something, the pitch, the rack whammy, forgot the name. So that's kind of cool. Not really looking to buy any music gear at this moment, but thanks for the question. Scarlet 4. Yeah, John, Rise was used in the S-Gear tutorial when they were Slate Digital. Awesome sounding tune and an epic guitar solo. Would love to be able to listen to the whole track. I'm going to look it up. Feel free to remind me in a message sometime soon. Fick Bastard. Opinion on Moorer preamps. Never tried them. They're supposed to be pretty nice. The Moorer preamp microseries of preamp live, but it's basically the same. Yeah, they seem pretty cool. I think the profiling feature is just a tone match type of thing, but yeah. Josh, no problem. Thanks. Music and tech. Hello, John. We need more good stuff from you. More tones. Give me more. Love your work, mate. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to end this chat a little bit, but I'm going to answer a couple more questions. Thanks for answering my question, Ivan. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Nick's Corsair as one tips. Hi, what IR do you keep going back to for thrash metal rhythm tones? Ooh, thrash metal rhythm tones. Let's see. For the really aggressive stuff, usually in the Workhorse V30 own hammer collection from the Line 6 marketplace, stuff like the 412 Gent, because that has a really pronounced aggressive sound. That's just one example. Let's see. Constantine, give us more motivation to work as hard as you work on all your videos. Come on, man. Here's more motivation. Go work. No, it has to come from the inside. I don't know. Listen to music and try to have some fun and don't try to overthink it. Philip V, thanks for answering all of our questions. If you get a chance, try the soft tube Marshalls. Sure. Thanks for the suggestion. Pim van Vught, what's your favorite guitar that came out this month? I haven't looked into all of the new guitars. So, yeah, hard to answer. The purple ESP, there was this E2 Eclipse. That looked really nice. Could be my favorite. I don't know. I got my new Phoenix back here. That's not really new, like a new model, but that's one of my more recent guitars that I love from my personal collection. Music and tech. Jan, could you please dedicate a time to show how to make classic tones from Marshall amps, blah, blah, blah. Sure. Maybe I can do that. Start by using a classic sounding guitar like a Les Paul and a classic sounding amplifier with a classic sounding IR or cabinet and work from there. That should be a great place to start. Not too much gain. Don't be afraid of the mid-range. Hit your strings hard because the amplifiers back then didn't have a ton of gain, so a lot of that power had to come from the hand. That helps. But thanks for the question. Almost there, guys. I'm gonna finish these last couple ones, and then I'm gonna chill for a bit. But I've really enjoyed this chat, so thank you so much for hanging out, guys. Really appreciate it. Hey, there are some of the bands you looked up to. Okay, quickly, a couple ones: Metallica, Dream Theater, Rammstein, Deftones. Oh man, there's so many bands that I look up to. Those are some of the main ones. Cosman, thanks for answering questions. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like I said earlier, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to move to a new place, so that I'm going to be off the grid for about 2 weeks. So there won't be a lot of videos from then on for about 2 weeks, but I've got 2 really cool amp comparisons coming up in the next 2 weeks, so stay tuned for those. Some plugging there. Federico, hi from Italy. Your videos are the best. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Seth Filippo, if you could add one amp model to the Helix, what would that be? I think I want a Rockerverb. Rockerverb would be nice. Or an EVH. One of those two. When using IRs on a... Nick's Corsair, when using an IR on a monotrack, are you using no more than 2 IRs? I always use 1 IR for 1 guitar. So never 2 for 1 guitar. I don't tend to blend IRs very often. Claude C, what's your opinion on 6-string baritone versus 7-string? If only play rhythm in drop A. Both are nice. Both inspire different types of chord shapes and stuff like that. Yeah, both. Sorry. That's why I have both, because I want both. It depends on what you like. Yeah, it's hard to answer. That's something you'd have to think about. Maybe try a 6-string and try a 7-string and see what happens, and then decide based on that. Almost there. Hi, John. I'm running my time-based pedals in the loop of my OR15. Should I go with a modeling phaser, my modeling phaser as well? Sure. Why not? Sure. Snooky-Doo1. Thank you. All the best to you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Seth. Thanks, Constantine. Thanks, Scarlett. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. These 2 hours, they flew by like very fast. It was a lot of fun to talk to you guys, to hang out with some people again in this weird phase of our lives. The entire world is in a strange place right now. And yeah, we need to hang out more and have fun. So before I go, if you haven't dropped a like yet, it would really help if you want to drop a comment in the comment section down below. That really helps. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit subscribe along with the bell. Stay up to date. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram as well. And stay tuned for my awesome new amplifier comparisons that are coming next week and the week after. The first one features my OR15, my Blackstar, my Euxin Kettner 2, Meister Deluxe 40, and my Ironheart from Laney. And then the week after, we're going to do a video of my Fireball 25 versus the MT15. And that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So yeah. Oh, one more question, and then I'm going to go. Kyle Fox, would a JB sound good in the PRS? I think so. I've been thinking about that. Yes. All right, guys. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope to see you guys soon. And yeah, stay safe. Have a great weekend and take care, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.